So let me recapitulate some of the things that I've done in the last class. One is that for any system, thermodynamic system, you have a corresponding surrounding and a boundary. Right? And we have already talked about the isolated system where neither mass or energy transfer is there, closed system where only energy can cross the boundary but not mass, then open system where mass and energy transfer both are taking place. And sometimes we use the word control volume. Okay, it's a fixed region in space that is studied. Right? So, and what is steady state is another thing that you must understand. So steady state means the condition where the properties, say for example, pressure, temperature, etc., at any given point in the system are constant over time. And mass is also constant. That means if I look at this, so that means here the m dot in, right? And if this is m dot out, then m dot in is equal to m dot out. So that means mass inside the control volume is same, right? So under the steady state, so coming in and coming out are same, and also the properties will be same. So this is steady state. Okay. Now we must also talk about equilibrium, thermodynamic state and equilibrium. What is equilibrium? Equilibrium is a state. If you talk about equilibrium of an isolated system, then it will remain unchanged indefinitely as the system remains isolated. Okay. So, any system, if you keep it long enough, it will isolated system. That means no mass transfer, no heat transfer, no energy transfer. Then it will always reach finally some state of equilibrium. After that, there will be no change occurring. Now, there are different kinds of internal equilibrium. One is thermal equilibrium. That means the temperature throughout the system will become uniform. Mechanical equilibrium, right? So the pressure throughout the system will become uniform. There'll be no net force, right, between different parts of the system. So everywhere pressure will be same. Then transfer equilibrium. Transfer equilibrium means, for example, I have a system where I have, say, salt solution, right? So I am maybe putting salt in one part of that water. So if you leave it long enough, then the concentration of salt will become uniform throughout the water, which is my system. After that, it will reach a equilibrium state. So that is called transfer equilibrium. Then you have reaction equilibrium. Say, for example, if I have a mixture where I have two different species, which given the temperature is supposed to react, right? So then that reaction will take place until everything becomes a product or it reaches some sort of equilibrium, reaction equilibrium. So that is called chemical reaction equilibrium, right? Chemical equilibrium. Now another concept is a homogeneous system. Homogeneous system means a single phase of uniform temperature and pressure, and which is in thermal and mechanical equilibrium. So it's a homogeneous, right? It is only single phase of a substance. And heterogeneous system, right, is a combination of many different substances together, mixed together. So, for example, salt and water, two different species mixed together. So there you will also need transfer equilibrium, or it could be different species reaction equilibrium. Right? But if it's a homogeneous system, single species, then you don't have to bother about reaction equilibrium and transfer equilibrium. Right? Now, quasi-static process I have already, described to you. Say, for example, if I have, right, as I told you, you go from one state to another, right? And you go through some states. You go through some states. Right? And everywhere you are reaching equilibrium. It's an imaginary idealized process in which a system passes through a continuous sequence of equilibrium states. So these are the equilibrium state. Now, so this sequence of equilibrium states can be approximated as closely as desired, right? Because these equilibrium states are first you have to know what is a spontaneous process, right? Spontaneous means something where it is not in I have to introduce the word reversible and irreversible. Okay, I will talk about that later. So let us understand that a quasi-static process means that every time it reaches an equilibrium, because unless it reaches an equilibrium, you cannot describe the process. If the pressure throughout the medium is not constant, what is the pressure that you're going to specify? If the temperature throughout the medium is not uniform, what is the temperature that you're going to specify? So it's very important for us to have equilibrium so that we can fully describe the system at every stage, right? For doing any thermodynamic analysis. Now, let us talk about process. What is a process? The process is succession of states, right? Succession of states. Previously, I talked about quasi-static process, a succession of states where each successive state is in equilibrium. That is called quasi-static, right? So this is the succession of state is very important, and this is the initial state. So these are all initial states. Initial states, right? These are all initial. I will use the word I. And these are all final states, right? Final state. Final state. Okay. So, and it follows a path. So this is some path to go from I to F. This is another path. This is constant pressure process. It's a constant volume process. Okay. Now, what is a cyclic process? A series of processes that results in the system returning to its original state. So how will it look like? So if I have, say, another one, if I draw another one like this. say I have right, it goes like that from this point to this point. Then it goes like this. So this will be a cyclic. So I've combined these three and come up with a cyclic process where this constant volume and the constant pressure process, I have reversed the direction. So I have attained a cyclic process. What is a reversible process? A reversible process is one that can be reversed without changing system or surrounding. I will give you an example later on. So here in this case, what is happening is you are able to get back to the original state. Say, for example, you have come from state I to state F by having some amount of, say, heat transfer and work transfer. So you have the same amount of heat and work transfer in a reverse direction, right? And you go back to the original process from F to I along the same path, right? That is reversible. Now, what is it? Let me give you an example of something that is irreversible. So let me first say what is irreversible. A process, if reversed, would result in the change to the system or surrounding. So you get back to the original state, but you have changed your system and the surrounding. Say, for example, what is an irreversible process? Say, for example, I'm rubbing my two hands, right? I'm rubbing my hand and the heat is getting dissipated. So heat gets dissipated. So I am doing some work and heat gets dissipated. Now I will not be able to get back to the original state. It will not be possible. However, let us look at another process where I lift a body, right? I lift a body from ground floor to top floor, right? So its state has changed. It has gained some potential energy, right? Its energy content is more now. Now I can again go back to the ground floor and its potential energy will get reduced. So this is a sort of reversible, right? This can be reversed, right? You're going up the lift, you again go down the lift and the body, it attains its new this thing. So this is reversible, but a dissipative process like friction, right? You cannot get it back. It is completely lost. I cannot reverse it. As I explain the first law, you will get to understand it better next time. So,
excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Is this reversible and quasi-static processes are same?
Yes. A reversible process has to be quasi-static. A reversible process has to be quasi-static.
And vice versa is not true.
No, vice versa need not be true, but a reversible process has to be quasi-static.
Okay.
We will, unless every time you reach equilibrium, you will not get a reversible process. It is an idealization. Reversible is an idealization. Any spontaneous process that you see in nature are irreversible. You cannot really get it back. So then we will talk more about reversible irreversibility later on, and you will have a better understanding when I come to the different laws. The other one is adiabatic process. Adiabatic process means a process where there is no heat transfer across the system boundary. So these terminologies you must know. Isentropic process. I will describe entropy, in more detail later on. You may have heard the word entropy when in school, probably. You have heard the word entropy in school. I will describe it more later. Whatever you have learned, you just remember it now. So a process where entropy remains unchanged in the system, that is isentropic process. What is polytropic process? If we can describe it as PV to the power n is equal to constant, right, where P is the pressure and V is the volume, then that is called a polytropic process. What is a throttling process? Where enthalpy also I have not described yet, but you may have heard this word in school, so I will describe it in much later. It's also another property. So enthalpy is constant in the process. It's called throttling process. We'll revisit them. Now these properties, I told you about some properties like, isentropic, isentropy, then entropy, then enthalpy, right? So these are all properties. Now we can classify these properties as thermodynamic properties, extensive property and intensive property. Like pressure, temperature, mass, volume, relative humidity. We'll talk about relative humidity later again when we go into moisture in water. But so these are the extensive properties. That means properties are a function of no, I have written it incorrectly. So I have written incorrectly. Okay. So this will be intensive. Pressure, temperature is independent of mass, right? So it is intensive. Intensive, and this one is extensive. Okay. So pressure, so density is per unit mass basis. No, did I do it right? No, I think no, it was right. It was right. Okay, it was right. It was right. What I wrote is right. This was right. Okay. So here, this is a function of mass of the system, right? And intensive property is independent of mass. Say, for example, density is already, so this is independent of mass. Say, for example, whether it is 1 kg or 2 kg, the density can be the same. If it is iron, I take a piece of iron, whether I take 1 kg or 2 kg, density is the same, right? Similarly, specific volume. What is specific volume? Specific volume means volume per unit mass. So this is independent of mass, whether it's 1 kg or 2 kg, specific volume is the same. Similarly, specific internal energy. What is specific internal energy? That is in joules per kg. Since enthalpy is also joules per kg, right? So similarly, entropy also. So here these are intensive properties. That means they are not dependent on the amount of the material. It's a property which is per unit mass and is independent of whether you take 1 kg, 2 kg, 3 kg, it always remains same. What is extensive property? Right? Extensive property means, okay. So here, of course, this is also, it will also, so mass is of course dependent on the amount of mass, then volume also depend if you increase the. So these two are also, see, I've not done it correctly. So this is also will go here, right? I will correct it. So this is also, pressure is not dependent on the. So pressure is something that could be an intensive property. So then you have relative humidity. So whatever properties which is independent of mass, right? Right. Are called intensive property, and the ones which are dependent on the mass, right? They are called extensive properties. See, the table has been made incorrectly. I will correct it. So let us look at some of the property relations, right? Say enthalpy is internal energy plus PV. This you must have studied in school. I will go through them later on. Also, say the change in internal energy is CVDT. So that is a function of temperature, right? So this internal energy is a function of temperature. Now enthalpy is similarly a function of temperature, right? So once you know temperature, you know the internal energy, you know the enthalpy. So these are functions. Internal is a function of temperature, H is a function of temperature. And we also have PB relations. So these properties are interrelated, right? Say PV is equal to R of the gas into temperature, which is ideal gas, right? For a solid liquid, you don't have Cp, Cv separately, you just have C. So I will correct this table later. So you have intensive properties and you have extensive properties. Extensive property means if the mass doubles, then that property changes. Right? But intensive is, it does not depend on the mass. Now equation of state. What is meant by equation of state? You have studied in your school, but we'll just recapitulate. Because unless we can define the state and find out the state, we will not be able to do the thermodynamic calculations. So it's very important that we are able to relate the different states and know the relation between the states. Some of them are dependent variables, some of them are independent. So equation of state is a relation among, say, P, T, V and N. What is N here? Suppose we have a uniform fluid phase containing a known amount of Ni of each species. So many moles of a certain species, then so many number of moles of another species, right? And they are at some temperature T and pressure P. So to be able to define this substance, this mixture, I have to know the pressure, temperature and the volume, and I have to know each of the species, where this is the set of amounts of all substances. If it is A and B, if the species in A and B, it could be Na and Nb, right? Where A and B are species, are the different species, right? Mixture. So then you will need P, T, V, Na and Nb. Then only you can describe the full state of the system. Now it is not necessary that each of them are independent. It could be possible this one is dependent on the other. Say for example, I told you that the change in internal energy is CPdT. That means internal energy change is dependent on the temperature change. So if I give you the temperature change only and tell you what is the substance, you'll be able to figure out the internal energy change. So I don't have to give all the values. So of the 3 plus S quantities, where S is the number of substances, in this case, say if it is A and B, so number of substances will be 2, right? So of them, only 2 plus S are independent, right? So it could be, say, it could be pressure, temperature, say Na and Nb. So 2 plus the number of species. So these are the independent. So if I give all this, you'll automatically get the volume, right? So volume will be a function of, right? So volume is dependent. Right? Similarly, internal energy will also be dependent on PT, NA, NB. Right? So you have to know these primary state variables, and then you can get the dependent state variables. For a pure substance rather than a mixture, right? I'm talking about a pure substance. That means one species. The ideal gas equation PV equal to nRT, where R is the universal gas constant, N is the number of moles. This is valid. If you have a single gas, right? Single gas, then this is valid. If you know R, right? So, for example, it could be nitrogen, it could be oxygen, it could be carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is also a pure substance, right? It's a pure substance. But if I, right, so it's a pure substance. Now this is a equation of state of a pure gas, right? So PVM is equal to ZRT. What is VM? Is mole basis, right? So V is the volume and N is the number of moles. Okay. Moles. Where Z can be expressed as 1 plus B by Vm, C by Vm square plus dot dot dot, right? So B, C are available in the book. If you give the gas, if you tell us what is the, it's nitrogen, oxygen or whatever, then B, C, these coefficients are available. People have done, scientists have done experiments and they are given in the book. There is another way of expressing Z, that is in terms of pressure. So that is also given. You can write it as BC or BPCP. Right? So this is how, you for real gases, not ideal ones, if people have done experiments, scientists have done experiment and they are available. So it is not that always you have to use PV equal to nRT. For real gases also they are available, where R is equal to universal gas constant. So 8.3145. So you can either write it in Pascal meter cube kilomole or joules per kilomole. What is the amount of the substance? Amount we are writing in moles of a substance of mass M. So N, number of moles, is mass by molecular weight. Molecular weight could be in gram per mole, right? So gram per mole, mass is in gram, right? So you get the moles, right? So this is how you can find out if you know the molecular weight of the substance, then you can find out the number of moles. This you already know, I'm just recapitulating. Now, pressure, temperature, phase diagram. Now we are talking about the state of a system, right? So say for example, I'm talking about water, right? Water is some material, some substance. Now water, it can exist in different phases. It could be solid, that means ice. It could be in liquid form and it could be in vapor form. Now one can go, I have in the last class also I have told you how at constant pressure you can go from liquid to vapor, right? So in this diagram, it's a PT diagram. This CP is called the critical point, right? And I will talk about that later in more detail probably. And this is the triple point. At the triple point, solid, liquid and vapor are coexisting, right? And beyond this critical point, it is very difficult to distinguish between the vapor and the liquid, right? Vapor and the liquid. So that is why it is, given as a dashed line. but one can continuously go from one state to another by following different paths. This is continuous. A, B, C, D. I'm able to go from A to D by following a continuous path, either above the critical point, or I could also have gone, say, like this. I could also have gone using this path. That was also possible. So this is another path, this is another path, right? I can have different paths to go from one state to another, right? And these are all continuous paths, right? Through different paths you can. I have already told you about the process and paths. So, and here, so say, for example, a solid curve, these solid curves, these two solid curves. So this is solid curve. So here, this is also another. This is what I'm referring to, solid curve. That means coexistence curve, separating two areas, right? So this is liquid and gas can coexist. So somewhere here, it can coexist here. So here, you know, both are able to coexist, liquid and gas here. So let us take the example of water, right? Water. So here, so as we know, at pressure 1 atmosphere, at a pressure of 1 atmosphere, I'm getting some sounds from somewhere, I don't know. Okay. At a pressure of 1 atmosphere, right, the normal boiling point is 100 degrees centigrade, right? So here, liquid and vapor is coexisting at this normal boiling point. And what is this melting point? Melting point, ice and water are coexisting. Melting point, right? Ice and water are coexisting. What is this called? Sublimation point. See, this is a sublimation. That means here solid to vapor. It can go from solid to vapor. This is a sublimation point. On the, so at this temperature, at a particular temperature, if you know the temperature, right? Okay. So at this temperature, right? And this pressure, this temperature and this pressure, okay, there'll be sublimation, right? Sublimation. So you know about sublimation, this melting, sublimation point, melting point, and boiling. And the critical point for water is 374 degrees centigrade, 218 atmosphere. So if the state is above that, then you cannot distinguish between liquid and vapor, right? So you can go from liquid to vapor, and there'll be, you know, what is latent heat you have studied in school. Zero latent heat is required to go from liquid to vapor if it is beyond the critical point. Otherwise, to transform from liquid to gas, because it's the molecular arrangement changes, the distance between molecules in a liquid is much closer than the distance between molecules in a gas. And to make this rearrangement, right, you need some latent heat. Latent heat means latent. Latent means you give energy, heat, but it does not manifest in any temperature change. It is used up to change the arrangement of molecules. The energy goes there. It does not rise the temperature. It's called latent, right? But if it's a single phase, it is sensible. Sensible means you can sense it. Temperature goes up. So you have the concept of, you know, latent heat. You know, when you go from liquid to gas, because there's a rearrangement. But if you go above this, latent heat is not required. Now, what is this dP by dt sat? So this is the sat, right? So this is dP by dt. right? Sat, dP by dt sat. So this is the pressure and temperature. So it is the gradient, right? Gradient. So from this plot you can get the gradient. Or how much is that gradient, right? So that gradient is equal to, right? P is the pressure. P is the pressure. What is this? The latent heat. And what is the R? R for the R. This R is the universal gas constant, right? R is so, and this is the T is the temperature. Temperature. This is the gas constant. We will derive it later. So this is so here in this case, so latent heat depends on the latent heat, right? So as you will see, so as you go up, dP by dt is, right? So that is why the latent heat will change. You know, here the temperature is changing, and this temperature is in Kelvin. Kelvin, in Kelvin, right? So this is about the P and T phase diagram of water. Now I was showing a 2D diagram. You know, the phase diagram, I was showing it in 2D. Now if you look at it in 3D, this is how it will look like. PVT, surface for a substance which contracts upon freezing and which expands upon freezing. What is meant by contracts upon freezing means when it goes from solid to liquid, right? Solid and liquid. When it goes from solid to liquid, right, it will contract. Right? So that means the volume when it goes from solid to liquid, the volume will decrease. So if you the here it is different. So this portion is different, right? One is expanding upon freezing. From it goes from solid to liquid, right? At some constant temperature and pressure, right? It goes from solid to liquid. Then in one case, so what is, right? So here in one case it will be expanding, another case. So that is why here it is a little bit different. Here it's a little bit different. Here, right? Here it will be different. So, and this is how, and when I was showing the previous diagram, it was the PT diagram. If I look at it from this side, I will get the PT diagram. If I look up it from this side, I will get the PV diagram. So PV diagram is something that we have talked about later. This is the PV diagram, right? So this is the TV diagram. So the other one is the TV diagram, right? So TP, TV, three are there. So this is the temperature, and this is the specific volume, right? TV. So let us look at the TV diagram. You can look at the three-dimensional diagram in different ways. So this is the TV diagram. So previously I was showing you the PT diagram. So here, so this is the saturated liquid line, and this saturated vapor line. So here, and this is the liquid plus vapor, right? So this is fully liquid, this is fully vapor. What is the quality? So this is the, what is mg? G means, actually G means, I don't know, by convention we use G for vapor, right? So G is for vapor. So what is the total mass at any point of time, especially when phase change is occurring here? Mass of the MF is for the liquid, right? Liquid and mass of the vapor, right? These two together gives you the mass here, right? And this is called the quality. Mass of vapor by total mass, when there is phase change taking place, right? Phase change taking place. So mass of the vapor is X into M, right? So X is the quality. X is the quality. Similarly, so if you know V and this is, what is this? This is what is this? This is in meter cube per kg, right? Specific volume. Right? So per kg, the mass of vapor is much larger than the mass of the liquid, the volume of the liquid, right? So it is Vg minus Vf. Similarly, this is enthalpy, right? So this is enthalpy, right? And this is internal energy. So once you know the property, if you know the property of the pure substance, pure liquid, and the pure vapor, and if you know the state, then you can find out the property. So the here you will have to know. So to get the property here, right, to get U is a function of pressure and X, because P sat is a function of T sat. This is the saturated condition, right? P sat, T sat. The reason is that, let me again explain as we have done before. P T. So this is the saturation line. Right? So you have liquid and you have vapor. Right? So this is saturation line. So for a particular once you know the pressure is 1 atmosphere, you know that temperature saturation is 100, right? So P and T are related. So here the U is a function of P sat. Once you know P sat, you know T sat, P and T, and you have to know X, right? You have to know X. If I go back, so for example here, right, if I look at this, at 100 degrees centigrade, it is 1 atmosphere. So once you can specify either 1 atmosphere or 100 degrees centigrade. And if you say it's saturated condition, it's fine, right? Now within this saturated condition, we have to know the quality, right? Saturated condition means liquid and vapor are coexisting. So only saying P sat 100 degree centigrade. If I say water at 100 degrees centigrade, that does not specify. I know that the atmosphere is 1, right? If it's saturated condition, I have to also say that what is the quality, right? I also have to state the quality. X is the quality. So, but if I am here, right? If I am here, only P and T are good enough. But here I need Psat and X, right? Or Tsat and X. Only Psat, Tsat is P and T is not good enough here at this point inside the dome. When phase change is occurring, you know, the independent variables are either Psat X or Tsat X, right? But if it is a pure vapor or a pure liquid, then only pressure and temperature is good enough to specify everything, right? So that you must understand. I think we should end it here, right? Should we end it here?
Yes, sir. Sure.
Okay. So let us stop here. I will carry forward in the next class.
Sir, just one basic question. Sir, so in quasi-static process, practically that means we would have to conduct infinite steps.